Maharashtra as a Linguistic Province by Babasaheb Ambedkar. This was a statement submitted to the Linguistic Provinces Commission, published 1948, printed from the edition of 1948. Note: the figures quoted in this memorandum have been taken from various books and pamphlets written by various writers on the subject of reconstituting Maharashtra on a linguistic basis. I rely upon the writers for their accuracy. Similarly, the map of Maharashtra attached to this memorandum need not be taken as accurate or complete. The idea is merely to give a picture of how the province, when reconstituted, will look like. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, 14-10-48. Part 1. The Problem of Linguistic Provinces. 1. The question of linguistic provinces has not only led to a great deal of controversy born out of party prejudices and party interests, but it has led to a difference of opinion as to the merits thereof. The points of controversy relate to claims and counterclaims as between contiguous provinces to territories as well as to the terms of inclusion. I shall deal with them at a later stage insofar as they relate to the creation of the Maharashtra province. I shall first take up the question of the merits of the proposal for linguistic provinces. Purposes behind the demand for linguistic provinces. 2. What is the purpose which lies behind the demand for linguistic provinces? The generality of those who advocate for the creation of linguistic provinces do so because they believe that the provinces have different languages and cultures. They should therefore have the fullest scope to develop their languages and their cultures. In other words, the provinces have all the elements of a distinct nationality, and they should be allowed the freedom to grow to their fullest in nationhood. Difficulties arising out of linguistic provinces. 3. In discussing the question of creating such linguistic provinces, it would be very short-sighted to admit and omit from one's consideration the fact the structure of government of India of the future is to be cast in a dual form: A central government, and B, a number of provincial governments inextricably interlinked and interwoven in the discharge of their representative respective legislative, executive, and administrative functions. Before one could agree to the creation of linguistic provinces, one must, therefore, consider the effects which linguistic provinces would have on the working of the central government. 4. Among the many efforts and effects that may have been envisaged, the following are obvious. 1. Linguistic provinces will result in creating as many nations as there are groups which pride in their race, language, and literature. The central legislature will be a league of nations, and the central executive may become a meeting of separate and solidified nations filled with the consciousness of their being separate in culture and therefore in interests. They may develop the mentality of political insubordination, that is, refusal to obey the majority or of staging walkouts. The development of such a mentality is not to be altogether discounted. If such a mentality grows, it may easily make the working of the central government impossible. 2. The creation of linguistic provinces would be fatal to the maintenance of the necessary administrative relations between the center and the provinces. If each province adopts its own language as its official language, the central government will have to correspond in as many official languages as there are linguistic provinces. This must be accepted as an impossible task. How great a deadlock linguistic provinces will create in the working of the governmental machinery can be either and better understood by studying the effects of linguistic provinces on the judiciary. In the new setup, each province will have a high court with a series of subordinate courts below it. At the apex of these high courts will be the Supreme Court with the right to hear appeals against the decisions of the high courts. On the basis of linguistic provinces, courts of each province, including its high court, will conduct their proceedings in the language of the province. What is the Supreme Court to do when its jurisdiction is invoked for rectifying a wrong done by the high court? the Supreme Court will have to close down. For if it is to function, every judge of the Supreme Court, I am omitting for the moment the lawyers practicing therein, must know the language of every province, which it is impossible to provide for. No one can contemplate such a situation with equanimity. It may lead to the breakup of India. Instead of remaining united, India may end up becoming Europe, faced with the prospect of chaos and disorder. Advantages from linguistic provinces. 5. While it is true that the proposal of linguistic provinces creates a problem which goes to the very root of the matter, inasmuch as it affects the unity of India, there can be no doubt that the reconstruction of provinces on a linguistic basis has certain definite political advantages. 6. The main advantage of the scheme of linguistic provinces, which appeals to me quite strongly, is that the linguistic provinces would make democracy work better than it would in mixed provinces. A linguistic province produces what democracy needs, namely social homogeneity. Now, the homogeneity of a people depends upon their having a belief in a common origin, in the possession of a common language and literature, in their pride in a common historic tradition, community of social customs, etc. It is a proposition which no student of sociology can dispute. The absence of a social homogeneity in a state creates a dangerous situation, especially where such a state is raised on a democratic structure. History shows that democracy cannot work in a state where the population is not homogeneous. In a heterogeneous population divided into groups which are hostile and antisocial towards one another, the working of democracy is bound to give rise to cases of discrimination, neglect, partiality, suppression of the interests of one group at the hands of the other group, which happens to capture political power. The reason why in a heterogeneous society democracy cannot succeed is because power, instead of being used impartially and on merits and for the benefits of all, is used for the aggrandizement of one group and to the detriment of another. On the other hand, a state which is homogeneous in its population can work for the true ends of democracy, but there are no artificial barriers or social antipathies which lead to the misuse of political power. 7. It follows that if democracy is to function properly, the subjects of the state must be so distributed as to form a single homogeneous group. The constitution for the provinces of India, which is on the anvil, is designed for a democratic form of government. It follows that each province must be homogeneous in its population if democracy in the province is to be successful. This is simply another way of saying that each province must be a linguistic unit if it is to be fitted to work a democratic constitution. Herein lies the justification for linguistic provinces. Can the creation of linguistic provinces be postponed? 8. Can the solution of this problem be postponed? In this connection, I would like to place before the Commission the following considerations. 1. There is nothing new in the demand for linguistic provinces. 6 provinces, that is, East Punjab, United Provinces, Bihar, West Bengal, Assam, and Odisha, already exist as linguistic provinces. The provinces which are clamoring for being reconstituted on linguistic basis are Bombay, Madras, and the central provinces. When the principle of linguistic provinces is accepted in the case of 6 provinces, the other provinces which are asking the same principle to be applied to them cannot be asked to wait indefinitely. 2. The situation in the non-linguistic provinces has become exasperating, if not dangerous, and is in no way different from the situation as it existed in the old Turkish Empire or in the old Austro-Hungarian Empire. 3. The demand for linguistic provinces is an explosive force of the same character which was responsible for blowing up the old Turkish Empire or Austro-Hungarian Empire. It is better not to allow it to get too hot when it may be difficult to prevent an explosion. 4. So long as the provinces were not democratic in their constitution, and so long as they did not possess the widest sovereign powers which the new constitution gives them, the urgency of linguistic provinces was not very great. But with the new constitution, the problem has become very urgent. The solution of the difficulties. 9. If the problem must be dealt with immediately, what is to be the solution? As has already been pointed out, the solution must satisfy two conditions. While accepting the principle of linguistic provinces, it must provide against the breakup of India's unity. My solution of the problem, therefore, is that while accepting the demand for the reconstitution of provinces on a linguistic basis, the constitution should provide that the official language of every province shall be the same as the official language of the central government. It is only on the footing that I am prepared to accept the demand for linguistic provinces. 10. I am aware of the fact that my suggestion runs counter to the conception of linguistic provinces which is in vogue. It is that the language of the province should be its official language. I have no objection to linguistic provinces, but I have the strongest objection to the language of the province being made its official language where it happens to be different from the official language of the center. My objection is based on the following considerations. 1. The idea of having a linguistic province has nothing to do with the question of what should be its official language. By a linguistic province, I mean a province which by the social composition of its population is homogeneous and therefore more suited for the realization of those social ends which a democratic government must fulfill. In my view, a linguistic province has nothing to do with the language of the province. In the scheme of linguistic provinces, language has necessarily to play its part. But its part can be limited to the creation of the province, that is, for demarcation of the boundaries of the province. There is no categorical imperative in the scheme of linguistic provinces which compels us to make the language of the province its official language, nor is it necessary for sustaining the cultural unity of the province to make the province's language of the province its official language. For the cultural unity of the province, which already exists, is capable of being sustained by factors other than language, such as the common historical tradition, community of social customs, etc. To sustain provincial cultural unity which already exists, it does not require the use of the provincial language for official purposes. Fortunately for the provincialists, there is no fear of a Maharashtrian not remaining a Maharashtrian because he spoke another language. So also there is no fear of a Tamilian or an Andhra or a Bengali ceasing to be a Tamilian, Andhra or Bengali if he spoke any other language than his own mother tongue. 2. The out-and-out advocates for linguistic provinces would no doubt protest that they have no intention of converting the provinces into separate nations. Their bona fides need not be doubted. At the same time, it often happens that things do take a shape which their authors never intended. It is therefore absolutely necessary to take from the very beginning every step to prevent things taking an evil shape in course of time. There is therefore nothing wrong if the loosening of the ties in one direction is accompanied by their tightening in another direction. 3. We must not allow the provincial language to become its official language ever if it was natural that the provincial language should be the official language of the province. There is no danger in creating linguistic provinces. Danger lies in creating linguistic provinces with the language of each province as its official language. The latter would lead to the creation of provincial nationalities. For the use of the provincial languages as official languages would lead provincial cultures to be isolated, crystallized, hardened, and solidified. It would be fatal to allow this to happen. To allow this is to allow the provinces to become independent nations, separate in everything, and thus open the road to the ruination of a united India. In linguistic provinces, without the language of the province being made its official language, the provincial culture would remain fluid, with a channel open for give and take. Under no circumstances we must allow the linguistic provinces to make their provincial languages their official languages. 11. The composition of an all-India official language on a linguistic province, which may happen to be different from the language of this province, cannot come in the way of maintaining provincial culture. Official language will be used only in the field occupied by government. The non-official field, or what may be the purely cultural field, will still remain open to the provincial language to play its part. There may be a healthy competition between the official and non-official language. One may try to oust the other. If the official language succeeds in ousting the non-official language from the cultural field, nothing like it. If it fails, there cannot be much harm. Such a position cannot be said to be intolerable. It is no more intolerable than the present position in which we have English as the official language and the provincial language as its non-official language. The only difference is that the official language will not be English but some other. The requirements of a satisfactory solution. 12. I am aware of the fact that my solution is not an ideal solution. It makes workings of the constitution in the provinces on democratic lines possible, but it does not make possible the democratic working of the constitution at the center. That is because mere linguistic unity, that is the facility to speak a common language, does not ensure homogeneity, which is the result of many other factors. As stated before, the representatives selected by the provinces to the central legislature will remain what they are, namely Bengalis, Tamilians, Andhras, Maharashtrians, etc., even though they may be speaking the official language of the center and not their mother tongue. But an ideal solution which can be put into effect immediately, I cannot see. We must be content with the next best. The only thing we must be sure about is that the solution we adopt immediately must satisfy two conditions. 1. It must be the very next best to the ideal, and 2. It must be capable of developing itself into the ideal. Judged in the light of these considerations, I venture to say that the solution which I have suggested satisfies these two conditions. The end.